Welcome back to the show. Our first guest is Paul Kelly, President and General Manager of Longport Media. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me out.
Appreciate you being here. Listen, we go back a little bit. Before we get into the crux of Sirius and Longport Media and that sort of thing, Paul, let's learn about you a little bit. I believe that you are an alumni here at Stockton University also, correct?
You have that correct, yeah. I don't know if TV was invented yet. It was that long ago. But yeah, class of 95. You know, I enrolled here fall of 91, had a great time, absolutely loved it here, great experience. And now you see the place and it's hard for me to recognize it. It was so long ago. Now it's so built up. And of course, at the time, it was Richard Stockton College. Now it's Stockton University. And they have so much to offer now. It's unbelievable. It is a beautiful campus. So glad. It just seems like as we get guests on the show, more and more are alumni. I mean, and I do have a list, but I don't pick it that way. But it's great because Stockton is a vast community and within the area. Again, radio. Talk to us. This man is radio, both sides, all sides of radio. Yeah. Talk about us with that love. And was it something that was initiated here in Stockton, or? So when I was a little kid, I always knew I wanted to be on the radio, right? Like I played pretend radio station in my bedroom when I was a little kid. And I guess at some point in high school, I kind of lost that passion for it or just didn't see it as a viable career path. I got to Stockton and a friend of mine who was already here was working for WLFR, the radio station here. He says, come on up during my show. You know, come on in, sit in. Sat in with him and I was like, this is awesome. I have to do this. And so did my own show here at Stockton for a number of years. And then Stockton actually placed me in an internship at a local radio station here, ended up getting hired there, and now it's a quarter of a century later, still working in radio.
Well, listen, that's the way to go. And as we tape this show, you know, we have students working with us and some staff. But, you know, what's some advice that you would give them in this and the Arts and Humanities department?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to get into the radio business, right? First of all, you know, some people look at radio and say, well, you know, isn't that like a dying medium now? There's so many other choices and all that. In the 70s, 93% of people listened to radio on a weekly basis. In the 70s, we're talking 45 years ago. Now, that number's 90%, okay? So it's fallen 3% in the last 45 years or so. So the demise of radio has been greatly overstated. A lot of people use radio, but yeah, anybody looking to get into it, I think the most important thing is to just find out what your voice is. You know, what do you like? What do you want to talk about? What's your personality? You know, and there's any number of ways now that you can begin to express that. Maybe your own podcast. I mean, there's any number of ways you can do that now. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of easier to break into that business than it ever has been before.
And when you talked about podcasts, you know, for some of the folks, some old heads like myself, we tend to complicate things. Well, it's a podcast, but what is it? But, you know, they both go in together. I mean, explain that a little bit, you know, just where it's an interview, it's radio, it's all transferable and interacting.
Yeah, I mean, audio as a medium is bigger than it's ever been because terrestrial radio is still doing its thing. Obviously, you've got satellite radio now, you've got internet radio, you've got podcasting. Podcasting is great because you have shows now that are so specialized. You know, if you're interested in just about anything, there is a podcast for you. It's out there somewhere. You can find it. You know, so it's exciting. I mean, again, audio as a medium right now is bigger than it's ever been.
It's the Google of audio, right? I mean, just you could Google anything, and you could find any subject and whatnot. So talk to us a little bit about your start. Longport Media, I know that's where you are now, president and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And again, you touched on it a little bit with the Stockton show that you did. But let's move up a little bit and how it transformed into where you are right now.
Yeah, so I come from the programming side, so I knew I wanted to be on the radio. I never wanted to run my own media company or anything like that. I wanted to be on the air. So that's where I started. You know, Stockton got me in at a local station. I was a part-time DJ, full-time, worked my way on up to programming the radio stations, meaning picking the formats, what songs are we going to play, how often are we going to play them, all that kind of stuff. Now that I run a radio group, I come from the programming side. Usually people in my position come from the sales side of things. The business guy takes over and runs the cluster. But so I'm a little bit unusual in that I come from the programming side of things and I'm running Longport Media. And I still keep my hand in the programming. I mean, I'm still programming the music on the radio stations because that's my passion and I refuse to give it up.
Right, and that's the beauty of it. And I'll let you in a little secret. A lot of the guys, some of you guys out there know, I do have a little radio show on WOND, Longport Media, and a lot of the men and women appreciate the fact that you've come from that side. Not that there's anything, from the business side, but, touch on that a little bit, because the nuances a little bit better than, I would say, a business person. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, I like to think that I could relate to the talent who works for us, because I am one, and I have been one my entire career, right? So I think that that's a good thing. And at the end of the day, we want to put out a good product. We've got 4 great radio stations. We're very live. We're very local. That's what Longport Media is all about. And we're never going to lose that as long as I'm running the show there. It's very important to me. It's what we do. Look, now in radio, the trend is to air more satellite programming, more syndicated shows, unhosted time, reruns, all this kind of stuff. We believe being live and local is the best way that we can serve the community, so that's how we approach the business every day.
And now that you touched on that, and that's what I want to touch on a little bit. I'm on with WOND. Yeah. We also have a rock station, oldies and sports, we're going to touch on the next segment. Tell us about a little bit that long run that WOND's had locally here.
WOND has been the news, talk, and information station in South Jersey for decades and decades and decades. We go all the way back to Pinky Kravitz. Everybody knows that name. Which, by the way, the last time I did an interview like this on TV, it was Pinky's Corner back on the old TV 40, right? Yeah. And Pinky would always start his interviews the same way. He had one question. If I'm Pinky and I'm interviewing you, my question is, so who is Mike Lopez? And then you would just have to talk for the next 20 minutes. So that was the show.
Right, you just sit there. Listen, I'll be honest with you too. Back in the day, I remember as a 9, 10, maybe, and in my teens too, in my 20s, watching him on Friday nights, Saturday nights, listening on the radio, going to work or whatnot, or in the wrestling room, in the football room, and my guys would be like, what the hell are you listening to? What are you, watching? But that was just always my love, local radio, not knowing that I would ever do it myself or me working over at Longport Media. And Pinky was he is that guy. He was the one. Not only was he have a great show, whether it was TV or radio, he got stuff done too.
He did. He genuinely cared about the people in the area, and he was all about helping them. And he did that through his TV show, through his radio show. Such an icon. But again, just being live and local is so important to us, because other audio mediums, and we talked about some of them, whether it's podcasting or satellite radio, there's a place for all of that. Right. But there's certain things that they can't do. And being live and being local and talking about what's happening in this area right now as it's happening is something they'll never be able to do. And terrestrial radio does that, and that's what we're all about.
Thanks, Paul. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back, continuing our conversation with Paul Kelly right after this break.